Gotta drink my water. I used to drink Pepsi or Coke One. Is that what it is? Or Coke Zero? My doctor was like, "Hey, stop it." So I did. That was like 5 months ago, maybe. Because I'm like sitting here all day long, like working, getting heavier and stuff. Made me lower my sodium. Got rid of caffeine. Blah 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 blah. Because I didn't want to die, you know. And now, good news is, I fit in the shirts my wife stole from me. I'm Batman. Anyways, when I look on YouTube, on other literary channels, one of the lowest view count videos is how I got my literary agent. So I thought I should do one. But really, like, I think I'm probably a good person to ask because look at me. Like, I have a literary agent. Like, should I? I look like I should have a parole officer. I'm just kidding. People with beards don't have to look that way. In fact, I'm thinking about cutting this thing off. Some people are like, yes, please cut it off. You'll get a guy. And they always say the same thing. Never cut it off, man. So what is a guy like me doing with a literary agent at all? Well, it's kind of a weird story. And it all kind of goes back to how I met my wife. When in high school, I wasn't the guy that girls chose. I later found out girls liked me, you know, in high school, but, you know, I'm kind of a meek person in a lot of ways. Like, I have a personality that's like this, but I am not the kind of person that's going to just go ask a person out. I just kind of kept to myself. I was kind of like the guy from Pump Up the Volume. I ate lunch by myself. My personality is still like that. It's one of the reasons why social media, I don't really do well with it, because I really don't like the hip crowd and I don't like the popular crowd, whatever. I just don't like trends. I have a really hard time with it. You can see it in my artwork. It doesn't really look like what's going on in publishing right now, which is not a brag. That's actually a negative. I've always heard, you know, just look at what they're doing today and then kind of do something like it, you know, and I'm like, I'm not going to do anything like that. The reason I think this is important is because the question on how I get an agent is no different than how do I meet someone. When I was in high school, people would say if there was a girl, or I'd hear my other friends trying to ask a girl out, they'd say, "Ugh." Guys are just as bad, but my experience as a guy, that was the way what we experienced. You know, oh, you're not tall enough, or you're not skinny enough, or you're not in shape enough, or you're not funny enough, whatever. And you start going, okay, I need to be funnier, or I need to be taller, or I need to have better hair, or, you know, I need to join the football team. All these kind of things people are doing to try and impress someone. I was just standing in a music store. I was 19, and I went to that music store every day. In fact, when we later got married, the owner of the store played at our wedding. And I saw people come in all the time. I mean, it was just like, whatever. This girl walks in, and I was just stunned. I was like, who is this, you know? And it wasn't just how she looked. It was the way she carried herself. I could see that she just had this very, like, sweet disposition. So anyways, I noted the time when her lesson was. It was like Wednesdays at 4:30, I remember. And so the next Wednesday I was there at 4, just kind of waiting. 4:30 comes, she doesn't show up. The next week she didn't show up either. And I was just like, she's quit. I'll never see that person again. But I couldn't get her out of my mind. I just could not get her out of my mind. I was just like, who was that, you know? But that was about it. I thought, if she's gone, she's gone. That's just the way it goes. And then that weekend, I went to church with my family. This church that we were going to at the time was a couple cities away. I'm sitting there, and I see her walk in. And I was like, what in the hey? So I end up going and introduced myself after. Just like, you know, who knows? I try to have this sense about myself where I was like, yeah, you know, hey, maybe, you know, she's a freaking weirdo. I don't know. Like, I don't know. She tells me to this day that the first time she met me, she knew she was going to marry me. And my wife's not the kind of person to just like say things like that. Like if I asked my wife, like, does this look bad on me? She'd say, yeah, that Batman shirt looks bad on you. Give it back, kind of thing. Looking back on it, and a lot of people asking me, like, because I have a wonderful wife. Like, if you ever met my wife, she's just like, everyone loves her. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if she was not so intently focused on making sure that I have a better life than she does. How do you meet someone like that? I guess that's why I get this question a lot, because people meet my wife and they say, and then they look at me, they say, what's the trick? what's the thing you said? You know? And I'm like, I don't know. You know, when I met her, I played music. She was interested in music. She showed up at a church that I was already a member of. And at that time, we were like really into reading a lot of that stuff, right? And so I had another interest that she had. She doesn't talk much, I do. So I fulfilled another thing that she needed, is someone to kind of take the conversation. Never once did I learn to play guitar or read any of that stuff or learn about historic theology or philosophy in order to meet someone. Our first anniversary, so we got married. That's spoilers. Her first gift to me was a book called, and I have it here, but it's right behind this thing. I should have gotten it out. But it's a book on how to break into the children's book publishing. And that was in 2007, 2008. She always had this sense about me that I would be good at it. And it's something I always wanted to do. So that was that then, and over the years, you know, I did a lot of things. I worked with special needs adults. I drove a truck. I was a welder. I did pest control. I did all these different types of things. I was horrible at it. You know, I'm just not very good at like going to jobs and stuff. I've just never been good at it. I was even a grave digger for a bit. And when I hit about 30, I became like incredibly depressed. You know, I have this wonderful wife, and I'm a complete failure. She could have married anyone, and she married that man. When you get into that kind of position, you just think like, it's better if I'm not around. I started having really bad nightmares, and the nightmare was the same thing over and over. I was in a plane that was going down. It was on fire, and everyone's screaming. I'm screaming. We're all freaking out. I can see everyone's faces turning, you know, not knowing what to do, and then it just crashes. I just kept having this nightmare over and over. It's like plane on fire, me screaming, everyone screaming. It's like one guy is like, oh, like shaking people, you know, whatever. The lady next to me is just screaming my ears out. But still, I couldn't shake it. One night I had the dream, and it was different. It was that I knew it was a dream. A great book to read this is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. Read those together. It's the same dream, just different. She's aware differently in the second dream. This time, I look out the window just like I always do. The engines are on fire. I just had this overwhelming sense that I knew the plane was going to crash. And so I get up, everyone's screaming, and I just walk over to the guy that's like shaking everybody, and I just like punch him. And everybody's like, huh. You know, they just stop freaking out. And then I just start walking down the aisle, and I kick in the cabin door. Boom! And the pilots are in there going, get out of here, what are you doing? And I'm like, I just move them out of the way. And my thinking is, I know the plane's going to crash. I might as well fly a plane once. I end up taking control, and I'm like, woof. And meanwhile, everybody behind me is still shocked at whatever I just did. Like, just punched the guy in the face, and then, you know, kicked in the door, and now I have control of the plane. And then the guy punched in the face screams out, do a barrel roll. Rad. I'm like, me. And in that moment, the plane, you know, levels off, and we start flying again. And then everyone's cheering, and I wake up. And I immediately feel better. And I'm like, what the heck did that mean? And now that I look back on it, I kind of know what it meant. It meant if my life felt like a plane that was going down, it was in flames, and I was going to lose everything anyways, I might as well live my life in those last moments the way I really want to live it. And when I started doing that, my life started taking off. Before it was begging for jobs. Before it was this. Before it was that. You know, like trying to like impress everyone. People ask me how I got an agent. People ask me how I got a wife. I don't focus on those things. I only focus on living my life before it ends. And people take notice of it. My wife noticed the things that I was interested in. I was focused on things. My agent found me. She said, you're on your own wavelength, and I want to be a part of it. There's no list that you can give people on how to meet a wife or a husband or how to get an agent. It's all feeling. And the feeling they want is they want you to be on an adventure that they want to be a part of. And that's how I got my agent.